Cup racing wasn't enough for him, I guess.
Yeah, that's what I said. It's like you think you can get a week off.
Right. All right, so obviously you're here in Michigan. You've raced here a couple times yourself. Fascinating new packages, of course, but I just want to start with the racetrack and how this track's treated you, and what are your thoughts on a place like this?
We showed up here in 2016. It was the first time for our truck team that we had really stepped up our motor program. We had one of our best qualifying efforts of the season, and I thought had a shot at a top 10 in the final restart of the race. Wound up getting shuffled back. Kind of guy in front of me missed a shift. We got shuffled back. So kind of a tough deal there, but was really excited about how we had run in the race. Last year, coming here with BJ, I think the team was just starting to turn a corner a little bit. We were right around 30th the entire time. This year, going into it with this package, it changes so much. It really, I don't know what to expect with it. We didn't really do any drafting yesterday, so I don't know where we're going to stack up single car speed. I think probably about where we normally are, right there in that 25 to 30 kind of ballpark, and then we'll see how we race.
Sport's turning a different turn, it seems. For a while they were going down the downforce, taking downforce away. Now they seem to be going down the plate package. And I know Brad yesterday had some comments. I'll bring them up, but I just wanted to get your thoughts first on kind of just where the sport seems to be turning, at least at the moment.
Yeah, I think it's a little frustrating for some of the drivers in the field where we go, this should be really hard. Racing at this level. This is the second highest level of racing in America right here. You talk about IndyCar, just a different discipline. This is nearly as high up the food chain as it gets. And it really should be the separator. To me, this series should separate the best drivers from the drivers that aren't quite as good, which is why I've really fought for leveling the playing field on the competition side. I think that's what NASCAR is shooting for with this package. It's just not working out like that. Kyle Busch is still a second and a half faster than me. And I can, for the first time, 100% know that has absolutely nothing to do with his driver skill compared to mine, because we're all just wide open the whole way around here. So it's just that his car is a second and a half faster than mine. Now, is Kyle Busch a better driver than me? Well, yeah, probably so. I would assume that he is. But that's not why he's a second and a half faster than me right now. So I think they wanted to close that up. It hasn't really done that. I think the way you close up the gap and make it more of a driver skill thing is you just have to make the cars harder to drive. And that's going to mean more horsepower and less downforce. Well, that's kind of the opposite of what we're doing right now. We're restricting horsepower and we're adding downforce and we're adding drag. And we're making it a lot easier to drive. I really believe that yesterday when I was out there by myself, I think we topped out. Our laps were about 165 miles an hour. That's a Rich Petty driving experience type of car. Now when you race in a pack, it's not like any Joe Schmo in the stands can come out there and do what we're doing in a pack. But absolutely, you've taken away that driver skill from a single car standpoint, and I think that's where it really gets exciting for the fans.
Now, as a small team, you think you would? We had Ross on Jeremy Clements on our last podcast, and he said he's against plate racing. I'm like, as a small team, you think having that opportunity, you'd be a huge fan of it. And you would think if you were to go down a route where it's tougher to drive the cars, the small teams would suffer more.
Right.
Is that kind of how you look at it? Are you really looking at having fun behind the wheel and just having it that way?
Yeah, I think, let's think about it this way. All right, the more horsepower you have, the less important each horsepower is. Right. So, if you have 1,050 horsepower and I have 1,000. Well, that's not nearly as big of a difference as if you have 750 horsepower and I have 700. That's a bigger difference. And so that's what you're seeing now. The smaller we're making that motor, the more important each horsepower is, and that's just going to lead to a bigger separation. The tighter you're making that aero window, the more important each count of downforce is going to be. And so it's just, you're making that a bigger spread, whereas I think opening things up quite a bit more would really allow a little more parity in that sense. And it sounds really weird to say. You're like, why would you want them to be able to have more? And it's like, what? They've got way more resources than we're ever going to be able to have. But if we're all making a lot of horsepower, then at least it's not going to matter quite as much on that front. If we're all struggling for downforce, maybe it's not going to matter quite as much on that front. You just want to return a little bit of this to the driver's hands, which I think more horsepower and less downforce does that.
Right. Brad had some pretty stark comments yesterday. He said that if we go down the plate racing route, a lot of the talented drivers will go elsewhere, and talent will start to deteriorate in NASCAR.
I don't believe that. I don't think anybody's going anywhere. I don't think anybody's going anywhere. Now, we'll complain, but I don't think anybody's going anywhere. If you're part of this, you wanted to be a part of NASCAR, this is where you want to be.
So you think it's more about the stage that you're on rather than the actual difficulty of the cars?
Yeah, I think it was disappointing to me being out there alone and driving around and going, man, this is not hard at all. Like, I feel like somebody else could come and do this right now. Now, whether that's true or not, when I go around Charlotte and I'm 3 feet off the wall, I'm sure there are a lot of other guys that could do what I was doing right there. But at least in the moment, you feel like, all right, this is pretty hard to get away with at a high level. So that's it. I just think that it just feels like the wheels kind of take it out of your hands. And to Jeremy's point, it's the same thing. And at a plate track, you're not in control of your own race car. You're not in control of your own race. And anytime you take that away, that's a little frustrating for a driver. I love plate racing, so I'll disagree with Jeremy because I do think it is an equalizer. Right. It's one of the very few true equalizers we have where it doesn't matter. You can get in a pack and have a good run. You know, you got to be a little lucky, but I think that there is absolutely a place for it. It's just very different than anything we do. I don't think it's necessarily a great idea to try to turn every 1.5 mile track into a plate race.
Right.
I think that really oversaturates it. I know NASCAR's trying things. I applaud them for trying things. Like, I've really kind of been a supporter of what they're trying to do. I just am a little leery of the direction we're going. I think maybe like I said, we're going to oversaturate the market a little bit.
Right. I know as a reporter just watching and covering and shooting all this action, it's really fun. It's exciting to see change, and it's happening so quickly. But you're the one behind the wheel. You're the one putting on the show. You're actually feeling it and being a part of it. I mean, it seems like a really fascinating time to be a NASCAR driver, especially in this series.
Things are changing so much, and this is where they're going to try to make the changes before they ever apply them to the Cup level.
Yeah.
We tested out that aero package at Indy last year. I thought it put on a good race. I thought you saw little packs form, and I mean, I'll say we were running with a pack of about 6 or 7 cars, and it was some of the craziest racing that I've done in this series. I mean, we were 3 wide going into turns at Indy. Now, I don't know who thought we would be doing that. So it put on a good show, and I think that's what they thought was going to happen in Pocono. It didn't. It didn't really change the show at all. If anything, it probably made it a lot more boring. So, swing and a miss there. They've admitted that it was a miss. Okay, that doesn't mean that it's just a failure. It's just okay. Maybe it didn't work there.
Right.
So they're going to try it on a 1.5 mile track. I see that coming. I think this is going to be the barometer for them. They're looking at Michigan today, going, "This is going to be our little test for does this work at 1.5 miles?"
Right.
And then maybe that true 1.5 miles, like a Kansas or something like that, or Kentucky. I don't know this. I'm spitballing. This is not like inside information or anything. I just think that's the next evolution of this.
Right. Does it make you appreciate short tracks more? I mean, we got Iowa coming up. I mean, at least when you know, you can't really screw around in the short track, I guess.
Yeah, I think the fun in the short track is still that NASCAR appeal, which is I've got to manage my equipment a little bit. I've got to manage my brakes a little bit. I've got to manage my rear tires. I've got to manage my front tires. And as much as we say, you're all out every single lap and you're pushing hard, and you are, but there's still a penalty for overdoing it.
Yeah.
And so I think a little bit of skill and patience and understanding your car and setting your car up correctly and all that for long run, short run, I think there's a lot more dynamic there that the drivers and the teams and the crew chiefs all really enjoy. Also, for a fan, let's just get it down to the simple facts. You can see the whole racetrack right there in front of you. All the action is a lot closer. The cars are a lot closer because there's not as much room. There's just so many more benefits to it for everybody involved.
Right. You gave me advice. I tested the K&N car last year.
Yeah.
It was an underpowered car, but it was at Meridian Speedway, a 1/4 mile track, and I mean, I definitely felt. I mean, when it came to I didn't have a headrest.
Yeah.
So I was going into corners like that, and I talked to Ross Chastain. He said he's driven cars without headsets, and still to this day, I mean, it's still hard to drive.
Oh,
so
very.
Yeah, just physically when it comes, and you got 11th at Iowa last year, so you're coming back up on that. That's what I love about NASCAR is the variation of tracks. I mean, you really get punished. And did you do outdoor in the Truck Series?
Never got to run Eldora. Our team ran Eldora, but we brought in a guy named J.R. Hefner, who's a dirt specialist from up in the Northeast, and he had a couple good runs there.
So you get tested in just so many different ways. I mean, just and now we're kind of seeing it change a little bit with the plates, I guess. But I mean, just how do you feel the Xfinity Series really keeps you at your best? I mean, obviously you're racing against Cup teams pretty much, but when it comes to the tracks and the cars, I mean, how much have you been tested this last year?
Yeah, a lot, and I feel like I've grown tremendously as a driver. Even sitting here now, last year this was my second race with BJ's team, and just a year separated from that, I feel like I've improved tremendously. I've run basically, this is going to be race number 10 for me this year.
10
with BJ, I think. So that'd be, I've run 19 races with him. So basically 2/3 of a season almost. I just feel like I've improved quite a bit. And, I can't think of enough for the opportunity to be able to do it. I think the schedule in Xfinity needs a shake-up. I think other people agree. I just don't see the point in a development series going to tracks more than once. I don't love that. I think you could add more schedule variation. I think there's some places that could really use a NASCAR race. I think about Memphis Motorsports Park and Milwaukee Mile and some of these places that we have an opportunity to go. Even Nashville Super Speedway, I just look at it and go, man, that's a waste. That's a really nice facility sitting there, and there's no racing going on. And, I think NASCAR has the power to really kind of re-energize those markets. I hope that's something we can do later on. I think it's still just, we're really leaning on the 1.5 miles quite a bit. This is the same thing a lot of fans have said.
And is that good, just to test the drivers, because that's what's in Cup?
Right, and that's why it still needs to be a large chunk of this. And if you went to every 1.5 miles once, that would still be like 11 tracks. So that would still be a third of the schedule, basically. So I mean, we would still be able to do it, and it'd take up the majority of your time. Like, that's the thing, is if your 1.5 mile program is good, it's kind of the barometer for how you are almost everywhere else. And so for BJ's team, that's where we need the biggest improvement, is 1.5 mile program. How do you do that? There's a lot of things that go into it. Horsepower is a big thing, keeping these things wound up. That's somewhere we've tried to improve. PME has improved their motor program, and we're going to continue trying to get better. Hopefully helping each other out there. The chassis, getting them lighter, getting them better. We're using older chassis, but how can we maximize everything that we've got? And it just takes time. And when you're trying to run, like, for example, my car, Zach, it's the same car I've run in 8 of the 10 races this year. So it's like, how do you make it better when you're turning around and running it every week? And it's a 1.5 mile car, and it's a short track car, and it's a speedway car. Like this week, it's kind of hard to specialize. And so that's the thing that's really fighting us right now, is we're not able, because we don't have the inventory and we don't have the people, it's hard for us to really specialize our cars and say, this is going to be a really good 1.5 mile car. This is going to be a really good short track car. We're kind of in the middle all the way at all of our stuff, so I think that'll be the next evolution of the team.
Have you been in an accident this year?
Charlotte, we blew a tire, and so that's why I say that I was in the same car 8 of the 9 that I've run, because the 9th one last week we were in steel body car at Pocono.
Right.
So,
man, I mean, you talk about, that's what I love about small teams, is that they're low on equipment. I mean, BJ's an owner. I mean, he talked to me last year, and I mean, he treats these cars like they're his wife. I mean, just like God.
It's the moneymaker for the team, is this equipment that's sitting in this hauler. This is how they get to the next race. This is how they pay everybody every week. And so it matters. And so that's one of the reasons I think BJ's allowed me to keep driving for him. I think I've done a pretty good job for him. I think I've allowed us to get some good finishes. I really don't think that matters quite as much as taking care of the equipment on a week-to-week basis. Like, if I was finishing 20th but tearing up a car every 3 races, that's not nearly as valuable as finishing 24th and taking care of it. That frustrates you a little bit every once in a while, that you can't be quite as risky. You got to think in the long game. And so I've been on the ownership side of things. I understand that. And I think I've carried a little bit of that behind the wheel as well. I think I'm selective with how I'm aggressive on the racetrack. And there's times where you just race your guts out. There's times where you really go for it. And when you got a shot at a good finish, BJ takes the gloves off. He's not afraid to do that. but he's also smart, and he's a businessman. He understands the long game of this.
Right. You guys race pretty close together. It seems like every week you qualify or kind of race near each other.
Yeah, it's kind of the race within the race. I think job security for me is if I beat him in a race, which I think this year it's kind of been split. It's been split pretty even.
Yeah.
The story last year was he would out-qualify me and I would out-race him.
Yeah.
Whereas this year, it's been about 50-50 on both of them. He's outraced me a few times, and I've outraced him a couple times.
And you as a driver are improving. You did 9 races last year, 9 so far this year. Your average start and finish have improved. You've completed more laps.
Yeah.
I mean, you talked about the team's improvements and how you've been gelling with the team and how you've improved yourself. I mean, where are you right now? Do you feel you're the best driver you've been?
Absolutely. I'm better now than I've ever been. Now, I don't know where that still is on the scale of how good I am, but I'm better now than I've ever been. And I've noticed that in stuff like Charlotte. Just comfort level running up by the wall and making passes that maybe those are things I wouldn't have been comfortable doing before. I mean, even as little as 3 years ago. Just changing grooves and moving around and driving a car that's really loose and being okay with it, and just adjustments that we make on the car and understanding of where we need to go and the feel that I'm looking for. Just overall a lot more comfort with it, which is why I get really jealous of these guys with big teams. Not because they're driving for a big team, but because they get so many laps and races and they get to run multiple series, and it's just more time. And I think you just develop so much with all that extra seat time. And so I'm jealous of that. I get they have big resources and all that. I'm not even mad about that. I'm just mad about I wish I had more seat time. I wish I could be in the car more. I wish I could run other stuff. I wish I could run late models and this. I wish I could do more. Still happy with what I have, but I wish there was more to do. I just feel like I've gotten a lot better. And the team has really improved quite a bit. I mean, honestly, Zach, at the start of this year, I was just hoping we would be a top 30 team. That was how I thought going into it. I said, okay, well, we were probably about a 35th place team last year. I wish we could fire off this year and be a top 30 team. And really, I think we've been a top 25 team, really. Yeah. I mean, in the owner standings, we're sitting 24th and 26th.
Yeah.
So you sit there and go, okay, well, we kind of overshot what I thought. I mean, we picked up probably 12 positions in the owner standings per car compared to where they were last year. So that's a dramatic improvement from one year to the next. I think there's still another step to get kind of at the front of this little pack of underdogs like the Jeremy Clements, the Ryan Sieg, the what was JGL, but like that next little pack right there in front of us, the 35 and the 36.
Yeah.
There's another step of growth that I'd like to see us make, and I think once you get competitive with those guys, that's really, you're contending for top 10s at that point.
Right. That was going to be my question. Like, we always say mid-pack teams, but I always want to know like who specifically you're racing against. Every week you have to have, Joey Gase, Alex LeBay. You have to have certain names that you watch, and you're like, okay, if we can beat them, we're going to be pretty good.
Yeah, and that's it. Joey got mad at me a couple weeks ago with how I raced him in Charlotte, and we've since talked about it. It's all good now. But he said, man, I just feel like you race me so hard when you get around me. And it wasn't really that I'm racing him hard, but he is a barometer for us, where I go, if we're really close to you, we're having a pretty good day. And we've got a shot at a top 15 on speed. And that's really cool. And so that's how I felt in Charlotte. We were running in the low 20s there in Charlotte, side by side with him, and going, man, we got a chance at a good day. Now, obviously, we blew a tire, but where you go, man, we got this kind of speed at a mile and a half. This is a really good day for us. I think we look at 51, the 39, the 35, the 36 in that way, where if we go, man, we're competitive with these guys, we got a shot. Now, look, tires and pit crew and strategy and a lot of other things that come into it, but when you fire off in that first run, when everything's equal, everybody's starting on the same tires, and you go, okay, we had speed in the car. I think that's the positive we got from it.
And one other thing, they're full time, and you're not.
Right.
So you talk
so
about seat time.
Spots.
If you have a top 15 run, I mean, you sure as hell going to go for it.
Right.
Do you feel they understand that? I mean, I guess most guys have been part time at some point, but right now you're the guy who's part time in this team.
Yeah, but I think I've been around enough that they almost see me as the full-time guy. Like, I'm going to wind up running over 20 races for the team this year.
Okay.
That's a decent amount. It's probably weirder when I'm not here for them. And I think just being I say I'm a veteran. It doesn't feel like I'm a veteran. It feels like I haven't really been around that long. I think I've only run like 60 races in my NASCAR career. So, and that's over the course of like 10 years. So it's not, You know, it's not like I've run just an insane amount of races. I've just been around for a long time, and I think with that carries a little bit of respect. Joey, I've raced with a lot. Alex, respect is a mutual thing. You know, like Alex is a Canadian champion. If you can't respect that, then you're not watching those races because they are awesome races. So for him to have won the series up there, that's like a ton of respect in my opinion. And the way I look at it is I go, I'm going to respect these guys. I'm going to give respect until I'm not getting it back. You know what I mean? And I think if everybody kind of took that same approach, and I'm directing this a little bit towards the other side of the garage, just because I'm in a small car, that doesn't mean I'm a bad driver, or on a small team. Doesn't mean I'm a bad driver. It's just a small team. Like, there's limitations. I respect the heck out of them. Like, I think Austin Cindric is a good driver. I don't care that he's had some bad luck. I still think he's a good driver. But how do they view our team as just probably being in the way? And I'm not saying Austin's ever said that, but I've gotten that vibe from the other side of the garage. It's like we're just kind of interfering with their race. It's like, dude, I'm racing for something
kind of the
too.
Other way around.
I'm racing for something too, man. You know, like I'm trying to get out here and improve this team, and by doing that, maybe I improve my stock in the garage and get a better opportunity further down the road. So we're all racing for something, and so I just think that respect needs to go both ways.
Yeah, absolutely. You said about 20 races or so?
Yeah, I'm probably going to wind up being about 23 races, something like that. Yeah, so pretty good bit left on the schedule there.
Yeah, you're about halfway through.
Yeah, so we're gonna run. I believe the next one, I think I'm skipping Chicago, Kentucky, and then there's a little stretch after that I'll be in it quite a bit. So Watkins Glen, getting to run a road course race this year. Excited about that. And we'll see just kind of how the schedule shakes out.
Right.
But I've heard Indianapolis, I've heard Darlington, I've heard some cool ones that I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, they just come up, I guess.
Yeah, it's more of a deal where, you know, BJ's looking for sponsorship on the car. He's looking for funded drivers.
Yeah.
If that comes, like, the car's up.
Yeah.
You know, I'm the replacement guy here. Like, and I understand my place on the team. My job is to keep this car in the points, keep this car in one piece.
Yeah.
Do the best we can every week and try to improve the program to where maybe we're a little more attractive to a sponsor or a funded driver down the road. And so I get it. I'm going to get to race as much as I can. But at the end, it's about the health of the team, and I understand.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely appreciate your time. Yeah, just a fantastic conversation.
Yeah, good seeing you again, Zach.